Hello and welcome to Shirley's Place. You know, at this time of the year, regardless of the weather, one of the first things we're thinking about is the spring is almost here. It's almost time to go into the park. And in eastern Newfoundland, the park is Terra Park. I have two very special guests to tell us about some of the things we might like to consider this summer. And first of all, Cunningham, whose proper title is Marketing Coordinator for Parks Canada.
That's correct, yeah.
And Greg Stroud, who is a park interpreter. How long have you been a park interpreter?
This is my 10th year.
You don't like your work too much, do you?
I know, I love it. I don't like it, I love it.
How did you start out, as a biologist?
Even as a kid, I always liked the outdoors, so I spent a great deal of time out there. So when I graduated from high school, I went to Memorial University, and I did biology. That's what I wanted to do. Even my high school yearbook says biologist as career. So I managed to get a job one summer in Terra as a student working on the interpretation programs. And from there, it was just like, this is what I want to do. So everything I did when I went back to school was geared toward that one thing.
But the outdoors has always been important to you. You grew up around Traytown.
Yes, Traytown, which borders the national park. So I grew up with a national park in my backyard. So it's quite something to know that we had this massive thing there that for a lot of local people, it's a place that wasn't used very much for say fishing or hunting, because you can't do that in a national park. But I remember as a kid going up in the Arm by my place, and it's still the same thing now when you go up in boat. I take my little girls up in the summer, and it's one of the few places home right now that has not changed since I was a little boy. So I'm glad I can have and share that same experience with my kids.
That's one nice thing about a park. Things don't always change too much. But Jewel, it must have been kind of a traumatic change for you. You were a city girl. You grew up in St. John's.
Yes, I sure did. Actually, just what Greg described is about the opposite of what happened for me when it came to working at Terra National Park. I was from St. John's, and I didn't really experience the outdoors too much. We didn't have a cabin or anything like that. So when I started working out at the park, it was a whole brand new experience. You know, I went to school. I did a marketing degree. I thought, okay, I'll work in the private sector. I'll move to a bigger city, you know, and I ended up moving into a smaller community, into a federal government, into a national park. And I can't say I made a bad decision at all. I mean,
it really grew
worked
on
out.
you, didn't it?
Yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah. What do you like best, and what makes it easy to sell the park? It's
easy to sell the park, I think, because I can pretty safely say that all the staff at Terra National Park really love what they're doing. It's not, you know, the atmosphere there is just great, and just knowing that you're protecting an environment for the future, that's in the back of your mind too when you're trying to promote the place. And I'm sure it shows, you know, when you talk about it with pride, it's a lot easier to sell that way.
Yeah, it's what you call a labor of love. Greg, what is different about a national park as opposed to just any city park or something local?
I noticed in your opening you said Terra Park, which a lot of people refer to Terra as that.
Right.
And it's lumped in, and in a lot of ways it's been considered one of the provincial parks on the island. But in fact, it's a national park. We're federally operated, and it's federal land that we own. The whole idea of a national park system across the country is to protect small representative examples of significant natural areas right across the country. So we have 39 natural regions which have been identified as unique from one another. And in each one of these areas, it's important to protect a representative example, a piece of that, so that at least that piece of the entire region is protected for all time, which is the purpose of the national park.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things that you are protecting. And the first, we talk flora and fauna. Right now, I'd like to talk about the fauna. I'd like to talk about this fella because he's kind of ugly. And a lot of people say, well, why would you want to protect something that looked like that? What is he? And why should he be protected? Yeah,
interesting little creature. Even as a boy, growing up, we used to see these off the end of the wharf or catch them fishing. A lot of people in Newfoundland call them blubber lips, because if you look at their lips, they're just like two big blubber things in the front of the face.
But I know what the answer is. He's a pout.
Yeah, it is,
right.
And that's what
and
it
looks like.
It looks like he's pouting all the time.
Like he's pouting.
So that's where it gets his name. It's called an ocean pout, and they spend a great deal of time on the bottom of the ocean, living in rock crevices, and they're almost like long eels with big lips.
They almost look like something out of prehistoric times.
Oh, they certainly do.
They have that kind of a look. Now, there's another one here. Now, I better be sure I've got this up. Have I got that the right side up?
You do.
Okay.
But it's hard to tell sometimes because you're dealing with a flat fish, so it's flat no matter which way you look at it.
What kind of a fish is it?
It's a flounder. and locally we call them flatfish in Newfoundland, and there's several different kinds of flounders. This is a winter flounder, and it's very common in the shallow waters in Terra Nova National Park. Actually, it's pretty common right around all shallow waters in Newfoundland. And the interesting thing about this one is even as a boy, you know, you're in your little boat and you're rowing around in the bay and you're looking for these things. They blend in so well that you could be looking at the bottom and it could be all sand and you can't see this thing until it moves, because if it goes over rocks, the back can actually change color to blend in with the rocks, but as it goes over sand, it can actually change color again to blend in with the sand. So they're really interesting creatures.
Fascinating. There's another interesting creature I'd like to talk about because they have personality names in the park. There is
Brian and Mila.
Brian and Mila, and two more.
Sue and Bob.
Sue and Bob, and Albert and Ethel.
Albert and Ethel.
And maybe we'll let everybody know now what kind of animals we're talking about. Actually, they're birds. Probably, I think, the most exciting, most dramatic bird in the world.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
Tell us who he is.
From a visitor's perspective, I mean, those are the most visited eagles, those three sets that we just named. And
What kind of
obviously
eagles are they?
Bald eagles.
Bald eagles.
Now, they're not bald, it's just they have that white head that
They
makes
have
them
that
appear
look,
to be
yeah.
bald.
But is this the same bird that it usually has become the emblem of the USA?
It is the same bird. In the States, this bird has been endangered in most areas. Now, it is making a comeback and is doing better. But in Newfoundland, the population is just incredible. We have quite a few nesting pairs in the overwinter here. And in Terra Nova National Park, we have some of the most accessible, easily watched eagles anywhere in Newfoundland.
For people who like to shoot birds, and I'm talking about with cameras, is it difficult to find them and to see the eagles?
No, the boat tour from the park, you can actually get very close to eagles. They're quite used to boats. They go about their daily business of collecting fish and feeding their young right in front of the boats. Now, we always make sure that the boats are not harassing the eagles, and the interpretive boat tour that we have, like the safety of the eagles and the well-being of the eagles is the utmost importance, and they do a remarkable job of interpreting the life history of a bald eagle. It is amazing watching an eagle come down and pick a fish off the water right in front of you.
What opportunities right here in our own province? I was just going to say, the eagle seems to be fairly well protected, but there's one little fella that is really in trouble, certainly around the world. And I'd like to take a look at the little fellow we've got sitting on the floor over here. Tell us something about him, Greg.
This creature is called the martin, the Newfoundland martin. In a lot of places they're called pine martins. Same kind of creature, but the one that we have in Newfoundland is actually a subspecies, or a little bit different than what you find on the mainland. In a lot of areas in North America, the population is doing very well. But in Newfoundland, they're not doing well at all. The species that we have, or the race that we have, has been classified as endangered, which means that the numbers are threatened to become extinct. They're very low. Only about 300 or so are believed to live on the island, with most of them on the west coast. We do have a very small population in Terra Nova at the moment, and we're trying our best to make sure that these things stay here forever, so everybody can. One of the big questions we get asked us is, well, you know, why should we protect this thing? I've never seen one before. Well, one interesting thing about it is that when they come outside the park, lots of times they're caught in snares and accidentally trapped, and you're not going to see them if they're not very, very plentiful. But when you go up to the west coast, you do see them more often when you're in the Little Grand Lake area.
Right. Speaking about seeing them, have you ever seen one, Jewel?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, because I understand they're not very easy to see. They kind of hide away, don't they?
They do, and they hop from tree to tree, so they're very difficult to see.
Yeah.
So if you're a visitor at the park, then
Yeah, but
consider yourself lucky.
we're going to get away from animals for a minute, because last spring we were out in Terra Nova Park and we had an opportunity to meet your senior interpreter, and we went to what I believe is the highest spot in the park. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And
Blue
it's
Hill.
called?
Blue Hill.
I imagine you've been up there many times.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Just let me tell you one thing before we start. It was windy. So if you don't always see our faces, because the hair was usually blowing forward, we're going to take you to Blue Hill and meet Gaileen Irwin. Gaileen, you came from far across the country, from the west. You came from BC. Can you remember what it was like the first time you saw it?
Oh, I thought this was one of the most fantastic views ever. I've been here over half my lifetime now, and I liked it so much that I stayed.
What is unique about this particular location?
Well, actually, Terra Nova protects a typical area of Newfoundland, and this area that you see from the view right here is really sort of interesting because it blends the sea and the land together. So you've got our main park theme is boreal landscapes touching sheltered seas, and you've got the long fingers of the sea, and that's kind of an interesting interface between the land and the sea here, and you can get a good view of it from
Yes.
the hill.
Well, you said it almost illustrates the whole concept of the park. What kind of things are we talking about? I mean, the first things that come to my mind are boating and kayaking and hiking through the woods. But what other kind of facilities do people look for when they come here?
Well, people are looking for whatever they can do to keep them busy. They want some of the educational things as well, like the interpretation programs. But with the sea kayaking, that's the business that's set up now. That's one thing that's just starting to get on the go. The boat tour. We have a lot of kayaks and canoes that you can rent at Sandy Pond. A lot of these are operated by our partners as well, and that's kind of an interesting way that we can work together with some of the activities.
Very often, when people say partners, they think of me a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Explain partners in this particular context.
Okay. These are basically people who operate a business within the park boundaries, and they offer a service that benefits the public, and it's a service that we don't offer them. It's kind of an extra that we as park staff aren't able to offer, but we put out a concession, and then someone will take off and operate the business. So it benefits the local people, it benefits the park, it benefits the public that can use the activities or use the facilities.
Oh, I can well imagine.
It's a good partnership.
But I was going to say, it's not every day, though, that you can tell visitors and tourists that we have a couple of icebergs for you to check out through the telescope, which is a convenience here.
That's right. Yes, icebergs, you just can't tie icebergs and whales on. You have to go out and experience them when they're there.
Would you say this is the highest point in the park?
Yes, it is. Blue Hill's the highest in the park.
I'm looking way out far. I think it's one of the old fire stations, the hill way over there.
That's right. Ochre Hill is another quite high fire tower.
But not quite as high as this place?
Not quite as high as Blue Hill, yeah. But one interesting thing about Blue Hill is that this is about 750 feet high. But if you go out to the outer Newman Sound area, it dives down into a huge cavern, and it's the ocean out there is far deeper than the hills are high. They're about 2,000 feet deep off Swale Island there.
Yeah.
So it's very, very deep underneath. But our hills here have been carved by the glaciers and rounded off, so we've lost our high hills.
Gaileen, we were talking to some visitors here a little while ago, and they were asking about the trees, and you said they're actually stunted, especially these visitors who had come from the West Coast where they have really tall trees. Why are our trees in that particular condition?
Well, you've got a variety of reasons. One is that the soil level is very shallow, so they can't establish deep roots, and some of the deep-rooted trees can't even grow here. And the soil is fairly poor, and you've got a lot of bog areas where the trees don't even grow, or they may grow to be up to waist height, but they may be 100 years old because the nutrients are so poor. You've also got a very short growing season with the long winters that we have, and
Right.
it makes it very difficult for them
So
to
would
survive.
freezing, cold winters make a big difference in the growth?
Oh, certainly it would, because the growing season is very short here in Newfoundland. Even corn doesn't grow
No, that's for sure.
in the gardens here.
What about the high winds?
High winds certainly have a play in it, because that tends to cool it off even more. For instance, the black spruce, they freeze dry in the winter. There's no moisture left in their needles, so that they can survive through the harsh winters.
Isn't it amazing? All the interesting little things we're learning today, but something I wanted you to tell me about. I was looking out at that hill out there, and it has a fire tower. Now, years ago, I can remember a lot of young men, especially ones that liked the outdoors, used to say, I'm going to be a fire warden one of these days, and I'm going to go up into these high towers and, keep an eye out on the woods and all these kind of things. But they don't do it anymore. What do the wardens do today?
A lot of the wardens do backcountry patrols. Some of the wardens operate the boats. They have the same authority as fisheries officers on the ocean, and they are protecting the park to make sure that it stays the same forever, for your grandchildren and forever.
Yes, but
So
they
that's-
protect it differently today. Some of them are in offices and work behind computers.
Yes, we've got a lot of people doing research and studies to actually find out what is in the park and what is happening over the years. This has been a national park since 1957. What changes have occurred? How can we keep it the same for future? There are vegetation management studies. Some of them are working on the GIS, the global information systems, and mapping everything by computers now, and checking on, for instance, there was a burn a few years ago just over by Blue Hill, and that burn area is one that they might look at to see how the changes have occurred with the fire So there are lots of things going on with the wardens, but they're not necessarily watching for fires because that's done in a different way now.
I heard a forestry specialist talking just recently about fires, and he said that most people think that fires are bad for the woods, but actually there's a good side to it too, isn't it?
Oh, that's very true. And that's one of the things that we're studying, is to see how the effects of putting out fires for so many years, because as soon as there's a fire, bing, we put it out right away. It doesn't have a chance to burn off the whole duff layer so that the seeds from new trees and things like that can grow. So what's happening in some cases, some of this, what they call goody, or the calumnia, the sheep laurel, is starting to grow, and some of the areas almost seem to be changing into more barren lands, and the forest is slowly receding as we're not allowing this layer of heath to be burned off by a good forest fire. So if we did have an area that burned and the whole area burned off well, then we could start a new forest, and it may actually refresh it. In Yellowstone National Park in the States, they find that the whole area now is come up with new growth that's never been there before.
So what you're actually saying is in our effort to protect the environment, sometimes we're changing it.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's not good.
We want things to stay as close as they can to the natural ways of being in the park.
Would you say that's the whole concept of what a national park is like?
Sure, it's here for future generations. It's hopefully going to be protected as is forever.
You've got the last word. Thank you. I can't believe this, almost a year ago. Gaileen Irwin, of course, did the interview, and we had a lot of fun, but it was awfully windy up there. I don't think I'd want to be up there again. But something that we did see in that tape that I thought was just beautiful. We saw an iceberg, but here is a gorgeous picture. You said, Greg, this one was taken several years ago.
Yes, this was taken just out at the edge of the park, actually from where Gaileen and you were in Blue Hill.
Yes.
And you're looking at that iceberg. It was around in that general area where that particular picture was taken as well.
A lot of people are going to the park, want to go when they know they can see things like that. When is the best time to see icebergs in the park?
Icebergs, you can see them right on, depending on the year, and certain years.
Some years are better than others.
Better than others, but May and June and early July is usually best. But we've had icebergs in the park or in eastern Newfoundland right into August some years.
Is that right?
Depending on the icebergs and how big they are and so on.
Great tourist attraction.
Oh, they're incredible.
Something else that a lot of people go into the park for is hiking. Jewel, you like hiking.
Hiking, that's me in the picture there.
Yes, I know. Where were you? What's the location?
That's at Mount Stanford, and it's on the Outport Trail. The Outport Trail is new, well, it's fairly new, brand new as of last year. It's a 50-kilometer loop trail. It's multi-day. We recommend about 3 days, and there's 5 backcountry camping locations on it. So it's a whole new market for us. We've never had a long trail before.
This is, if you're looking for a hiking experience, this is it. There is nothing in eastern Newfoundland that even compares to this.
This is for the pros, is it?
Yeah, no, anybody can do it
No,
if you're a
I'm not an
novice.
experienced hiker, but I found it strenuous. Very, very strenuous.
Are there any dangers, in hiking, out by yourself like that?
If you're well prepared and you have the right equipment, and you check in and register and you do that.
That's important, isn't it? Let somebody know where you're going to be in case you don't show up.
Yeah.
But the Outport Trail is a great experience. Like, when you come back, you're a better person. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely an accomplishment when you make it through. At least it was for me. I don't know about you, Greg.
Oh yeah,
but,
we did it in 2 days, so I was pretty sore when I got back.
The thing is,
wonderful.
the best lookouts are always the toughest to get to, right?
Yeah.
So
it's not just a hike. And when you're out there on that Outport Trail, it's an experience, and you see and you do. And like when we were out there, we had all kinds of birds, and we saw moose, and we had geese in the bog.
Yeah.
And don't go anywhere without your camera.
Exactly, loons were sitting on the water.
Yeah, we saw bear tracks.
Right.
So it was just a fabulous experience.
You did say loons.
Yes.
Is there anything in the world like the sound of a loon, either around sunset or early in the morning? That's usually when you hear them, isn't it?
Pretty
Yes.
relaxing.
It's kind of an eerie sound.
Yeah, and we have quite a few nesting in the park too, so it's quite nice to hear them in the evenings and the morning.
Oh, here's a beautiful. This is just a shot for pure beauty, I think. You must get some wonderful sunsets and sunrises in the park.
Yeah, that's a sunrise.
Yeah. The place where you were with Gaileen on Blue Hill is
Yeah.
the most remarkable place.
Is that right?
For sunsets. It is just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. Something I said I'd like to do is talk about, if somebody came into the park and they come up to the interpretation center or to the what do you call the head office where you register?
Marine Administration
The
Building?
administration building. And they said, look, I've only got a day or two, but tell me what are the best things to do and, you know, where can I have the most fun and enjoyment? You start, Greg.
Oh, if you're into hiking, we
Number
got some of
one.
the best hiking things around. If you're into bird watching, the park is just so special for boreal birds like owls and finches and all the things that are specialties for our type of forest. Bald eagles, as you saw. Canoeing in the backcountry is just fabulous in the park, from Sandy Pond to Duffy's Pond.
Marine Interpretation
Marine
Center.
Interpretation Center.
What
You
about the
have the stuff.
facilities for camping?
Facilities for camping, well, we have two front country campgrounds, Newman Sound Campground and Malati Head Campground. And Newman Sound's our most popular campground. It's got 66 sites with electrical hookup, heated showers, kitchen shelters, playgrounds, grocery
All the
store.
comforts of home.
All the comforts of home.
Don't I understand that you've got some sort of a kind of an outdoor kitchen there too for people that want to cook up?
Yeah, there's many kitchen shelters, and actually some families come as late as October and have their Thanksgiving dinner there. And they're enclosed during the winter, at least selected ones are. And families still come at the wintertime too.
And one of the big things, the park does not close. If you want to use that park 365 days a year, you're more than welcome to use it. It just so happens that certain
have to do it on
facilities are closed.
snowshoes.
But you'll have to be well equipped for winter camping. But
Of course,
we
there's a
welcome
bonus in the
anybody.
winter. You don't have to pay a fee.
That's true.
That's correct.
You don't, right?
correct.
Yeah.
But do you have to register with anybody?
Yes, you should still come in and register so we know you're there. Anyway, but the park is open and you can ski or snowshoe or backcountry camp if you want.
Okay, we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about camping. We've talked about hiking. Photography, I mean, great thing, seeing all
Lots
the
of nature
animals.
viewing,
Yeah, is there anything that we haven't covered? I'm just
Well,
trying to think. What about swimming?
Well, the swimming is Sandy Pond is one of the best locations for family swimming anywhere in eastern Newfoundland. I think one year it was ranked as the #1 spot.
Water cold?
No, the water is actually really warm in Sandy
it
Pond because it's so
shallow?
shallow,
Yeah.
and we've got lifeguards there all the time. So we're in the summer months, and it is a wonderful spot to take your family.
Yeah. One of the things that Gaileen talked about with the partners, I mean, and because of the partner operations that are in the park, you can do things like what? Kayaking? What else?
Boat tour and golf, and as well rent a canoe at Sandy Pond.
Yeah.
There are 4 main partners.
Yeah,
at Terra
we
National
did a program earlier in the season on the golf. The golf
golfing
course
is
is probably one
incredible.
of the most spectacular
Yeah, I
in
remember.
the country.
Yeah, I remember golfing there and seeing moose on the trail, seeing snowshoe hares,
Is that
seeing
right?
bald eagles fly over, geese fly
They
over.
talked about
It's
a
just
fox
incredible.
there actually that was
Really?
stealing golf balls.
Oh, you're kidding?
And, no,
It's an incredible experience.
What did he do with them?
I don't know.
Who knows? One
Isn't
of
that
the things that national parks are for too, as well as both the enjoyment aspects, which we're talking about now, and which we both do, is the educational element. Like we have a lot of interpretation programs that take people out and you go out on guided hikes and learn what you can eat in the woods and what you can't, what trees are what animals are what. I come down to our campfire programs where we get into traditional music and storytelling and lots of drama stuff as well. So it's one of the big things that adds to the experience if you're staying in the national park.
Yeah.
Camping is just such a delight.
The
you know.
nighttime fire gatherings
The,
must be
the campfires
exciting.
are,
Yeah.
we get 400 and 500 people sometimes.
And do you have any kind of entertainment for them?
Oh yes,
Or do they make their
absolutely. We have a person that Dave Saunders, one of our interpreters, who's just an absolute magic in front of a crowd. People come back every year and says, "Where's Dave? Where's Dave? Where's Dave?" So they seek him out, and he's going to be back again this year, and hopefully
Yes.
for many years.
Fantastic. Listen, something I wanted to include, because I always like to share some really practical information. We have a picture of another one of the animals that you might come across in the park. In fact, you might even come across them on the road. And I'd like to talk about the rules and regulations around moose.
Oh, moose. Well, as you know, as you drive through, there it is. As you drive through the park, you find we have a lot of signs that educate people about the fact that you're in the park, and also there are moose within the park. And we have large silhouettes up there just to keep it on your mind.
Yes.
The best thing to do if you're driving through the park, or in fact anywhere in Newfoundland, is always think moose. Always have it in your mind that moose can jump out of the ditch at any time.
Yes, but how should that affect the speed at which you're driving?
Yeah, well, in the national park, for people who drive through, they notice that our kilometers is 10 kilometers an hour lower than what you find in most of the other island. So it's ranked at 90, but I would recommend even slower than that during the nighttime.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
and if
even
the weather
60s
is
of
the least bit damp or slippery or anything else, slower again.
Slow, 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 slow. I can't say it.
Yeah.
Can't say
Very
it
good.
enough.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
On a
Jewel?
positive note, though, the moose are a great attraction for our visitors.
are they
you know.
ever?
It's something that people really love to see when they do come out to the park. And actually, I was speaking to a little boy who was out at the campground, and he hiked one of the trails. And his big thing was, oh my God, there were 84 sets of moose droppings out on the trail, and he just couldn't believe, you know, that this was.
Isn't it funny what children will be impressed
Yeah.
with? Not the moose,
Not
but what
the
he left
moose,
behind.
yeah.
And
Exactly.
they do spend a large amount of time around the grassy areas or like the Marine Interpretation Center
Yes.
and down around the campground. So there are incredible opportunities for viewing moose.
Jewel, you're the marketing coordinator. You've got about 2 minutes to tell people that are watching today. I imagine there are still some people that haven't been through Terra Nova Park.
There's lots of people.
How would you sell it? What's the most important thing?
Well, I think the pictures pretty well talked about everything. People come to our campground because it's been a tradition for Newfoundlanders for a very long time. 80% of our visitors are from Newfoundland. They're from St. John's in the Avalon area, and they've come out to vacation at Terra Nova National Park for 2-week vacations year after year after year, and that's
It's a
what
family
makes this
tradition,
special.
yeah.
Exactly.
And for people that don't know about it, you have some marvelous booklets. I really should say it. Could you give a number or an address where people could get hold of some of these
Sure. They can call us
information
at
booklets?
533-2801, and we'll give them all the information they need. They can buy their park passes at Signal Hill and Cape Spear in St. John's, as well as at various at our Parks Canada office in Pleasantville in St. John's.
Very good. And very quickly, for some young people that may be watching and saying, my, these jobs sound like they're so exciting. If somebody wanted to be an interpreter, what would they have to do?
You have to combine two things: the love of nature and the outdoors and the culture of Newfoundland with a gift of gab. You have to be able to communicate that information to people genuinely and be excited about it, and that's what we're looking for in people. So if you've got science background or history background, cultural background, art background, combined with that real love for the outdoors and the real love of sharing that information with people, that's the key right there.
Yeah, I'll plug up his mouth
I
now.
just got to say, you know something, you've got the last word. Greg Stroud, you certainly do live your work, and I thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Jill Cunningham, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Shirley.
Continue at excitement in your work, and you've got it. Now, I'll tell you what we're going to do for everybody now. You brought some beautiful pictures of scenery in the park, and as we close, we're going to give you a really uptight look. Bye for now.